So somebody asked me, I don't know, a while back about, I guess, sort of doing a paint along. They mentioned my process, which is mostly just winging it. So I thought I'd do a probably reasonably quick um, painting here. It's probably not going to be super detailed, but we'll see. I don't really have a big plan. I'm just, again, winging it because that's what I do. So this is a block, but I am going to tape it off so that it has borders. When you've got a block, you don't have to do this because the sides are already glued down. So it's not something that you have to get your stuff to stay in place or to help hold it flat. So that's something to consider when you're picking paper. Some people don't like blocks. They find them hard to get the paper off of. I actually did a video a while back about doing that, and honestly, it's pretty easy. But I feel like sometimes we overcomplicate things. So I'm just, like I said, you don't have to tape it down. The tape does give you a nice border when you decide to do that. So that's what I'm going for. I think I'm gonna do a little sea view. I did something similar in my sketchbook that I had posted. But we're gonna, I think, try that and then go from there. So tape's down. I like to just run my finger around it good, make sure the edges are down fairly well so it doesn't get any bleed. And then let's see, what do I want to start with? I guess we'll start with the water today. So I'm gonna drag out my quill brush. I have already kind of pre-wet some of my stuff. I'm just gonna wet some more down here off camera. And then my palette's too big to keep everything in frame, but I'll show it to you later. Okay, so we're gonna let that go, and then I'm gonna just bring this across. And this is all just clean water. You can put a piece of tape across if you want to create a very specific horizon line. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Kind of depends on what mood I'm in, I guess. If I want something very exact, then I will, because I am messy. And I also don't have the steadiest of hands. So I find sometimes getting that nice straight edge is kind of impossible. So I am actually gonna give this a moment to soak in and just kind of activate here. And then I think I want to start with a little M-Gram turquoise. Okay, so this is going to be like painting porn because this is going to be fun. Watch that bloom. I love watching this. Sometimes I just like to do colors just to watch them do that because I think it's fun. And that's called a bloom. When I do swatches, for those of you who saw some of my swatch stuff, I had labeled it as travel because I want to know how well stuff travels in water. As you can see, this M-Gram turquoise is really good. And so then we're just going to start pulling this down. And so with this, your far away water should be a little darker. And hey, there's a dog hair in this. Shocker. Let's see if we can get it out. You do have to be careful because if you scratch the paper, it can leave indentations behind, I guess, basically, and cause that stuff to show up. So sometimes if you can't get the hair off, if you just leave it until it dries, it'll be okay. But sometimes it will stick and cause a problem. All right, so let's see, what else do I want? That's a pretty cool color. So we're gonna stick with that. This is a little phthalo turquoise. that we're just gonna kind of slide in here. So if you've looked at any of my paintings and stuff, you'll know that I am very big on the blues. Big fan between my blues and greens. That's the bulk of actually what I have. So, and this is phthalo blue green shade. So we're gonna pull some of this in. And because these waters are fairly calm, I'm not gonna go too crazy with making the waves in it. Oh, I didn't quite get that hair out. There it goes. Okay. And we will do a little bit, but all right. And so let's see, what else do I want? I want some, well, I guess we'll do some of this. So this is the phthalo blue again, and I am just going to put some lines in it, and because my paper's still wet, they're gonna spread out some. This is gonna help us mimic some waves. And I'm gonna bring some of my other colors in too, to help with that. So I personally do not like all my colors mixing. I know some people don't care. It bothers me. So I do rinse off my brush, because I don't like it. I'm just gonna even that out up there. Now I'm gonna come back in with a little bit of the turquoise. This Ingram turquoise is actually one of my favorites. I was looking for a replacement for another color that I had, and this actually was not it, but it's such a pretty color. See, this is why I don't get to. Okay, we're gonna see if we can straighten this just a little bit. There we go. We're just gonna have waves in the distance. All right. So we've got that. We're just gonna work with here, and I'm actually going to thin out this bottom just a little. All right. So as you can see, my paper's getting a little buckly. Nothing wrong with that. It should do that. The block helps for that because it does help keep your paper flatter, and it's going to keep it from shrinking without having to tape it down. Like I said, in this case, the tape is strictly just to create a border, because I kind of like that. So we're going to do a couple things here. This is some Dr. Martin's bleed proof, and I want to come in here. I see another dog hair. There we go. Okay. I do want to come in here a little bit while it's still wet, because I want some of this to kind of spread out and help create that dimension. Put some blue in here. I'm gonna have to, whoa, pull that out. That's okay. We'll get that off in just a minute. All right. So I'm not being precise or anything. I'm just literally coming through here with a little bit of this bleed proof white. So when you put it on wet, it will actually spread out in the paint that you're putting it in, which is nice. And when it does that, it just kind of gives it a little more subtlety. I'm gonna pick that up. And then you can use it to help give just some, like I said, some subtleness. So I'm going to come in with it strong after this dries to help create some definition, but we just want this to actually have a little time to spread. Like I said, I will come in with it as white This is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof. So pretty much if you want a white that is absolutely going to be bleed proof, yeah, I've used gouache and stuff, but I've found that that's pretty much the only one that truly is. So while we're letting this dry up a little bit, I'm going to show you. So this is the New York Central Art Supply. This is 100% cotton. It's in a block. This is the 7x10. So this is the 140 pound that I'm using here. Oh geez, I didn't realize I got 300 pound on that. Anyway, so you can get 140 pounds and 300 pound. So the 300 pound is what I make the bookmarks out of, because I wanted them to be a lot more stiff. And then the 140 pound is what I do kind of like just regular stuff on, because the thickness is good and it just makes for a better painting for me, in my opinion. So I am gonna take a moment and we're gonna dry this, but you guys don't really need to watch all that. So I just have a regular heat gun here for this kind of thing. So I will see you again in a moment. Okay, so we have dried this. It is not cool to the touch, so if you're ever unclear on if your paint is dry enough to paint over without, you know, having the bleed and stuff, then it needs to be kind of room temperature. Sometimes it'll feel like you think it's dry, but when you touch it, it's still pretty cool to the touch. And if it's like that, then it's going to bleed. So we got our water in here. I'm not going to do the rest of the bleed proof just yet. And then I am going to come in on the sky. And let's see, what color do I want to do? How about some... Let's do some French ultramarine. And I am not actually going to wet my paper on this one ahead of time. I'm just going to fill up my brush and have it pretty wet. And so on the sky, you actually want it pretty dark at the top. So French ultramarine is a warmer blue, which I know sounds like an oxymoron. I get it. That's always thrown me a little bit too. And then I just want to come in here like this. And then I'm going to rinse out my brush here because I want to, and my water's pretty blue, but it's not going to matter for this. I just want to bring some of this down, but I don't really want to bring it too dark. So we're just going to kind of come down here. I'm going to come in at the top here. I want it a little darker. And you're going to see that that can lay down just a little bit. We're going to come in here. Let's just feather it down a little bit more. Like that. Okay. So now we got a good gradient on our sky. And I am going to lift out some clouds on this. So rinse your brush, make it pretty dry, and then you're just going to come through like that and pull up your paint. And these are just going to be little wispy clouds. So when I paint, I have had a hard time, I guess, seeing the painting as a whole instead of the individual strokes. So I have found for me that sometimes when I take a picture of it, it really helps to, I guess, bring the whole thing together for me. I'm going to feather this down just a little bit more because I don't like it. There we go. Because I have a hard time separating that stuff out. And as you get closer to your horizon, your clouds are going to get a little smaller. But in this case, I'm not super worried about it because we're fading out. And this is still wet, so some of these clouds are probably going to lose a little definition, and that's okay. I don't like that. That's okay. So a little too much water there. So I'm just going to come in and fill it back in a little bit. That's okay. So the good thing is for me, a lot of times on the sky, if you get a little bloom like that, then it actually creates some cool cloud effects. So, but there is our sky for the moment. And now that this is dry, I want to come in with the bleed proof white. Let's see here. The problem with the bleed proof white sometimes is that it doesn't really reconstitute well, I guess, and I don't like that, but it is what it is. So you can just put these in here. You'll see how it doesn't, now it doesn't like fade into the water. And so sometimes you just, if you hold your brush a little higher up, you're going to lose some control, but then your lines are a little more organic. I'm actually going to come back over that one. Because I didn't like it. But sometimes, like I said, if you hold your brush up and you add stuff that way, it's kind of nice, because you don't have the control, and so your lines end up being a little more organic. That's really all I want to do with that. I don't need a whole lot. You know what, I'm gonna bring some up. We don't need that drop. I am gonna bring some. I feel like I kind of neglected this corner a little bit. Make sure our edges are taken care of. There we go. All right. So there's that. Put this away. And that's our water. And then I think I'm gonna add some palm trees in frame. How do I want to do it? Okay, so I'm gonna need a little smaller brush. Okay, so the last time I did something like this, I used neutral tint for the palm trees, just I guess as a dark, you know, you kind of see in the back side, I guess. So I want to see if I can get some, oh, let's go with some sepia and some burnt umber, some raw umber, and I think maybe a little bit of olive green, maybe some green gold. So I don't always know what colors I'm going to use. A lot of times I wet stuff and then don't actually need it, and that's okay. But we're going to have to dry this sky so we don't get any bleed. So I will see you again momentarily. Okay, so since there wasn't so much water on the sky, it actually dried pretty quickly. The ocean part took a little longer. So let's see what I want here. So one of the problems I have personally with watercolor is that, to me, you have to think backwards, because you have to go light to dark as a general rule, and sometimes my brain just doesn't want to do that. So let's see here. Actually, I'll go ahead and, so I don't use a lot of straight black. If I want something dark, a lot of times I will use an indigo or a heavy paint gray or neutral tints, usually my biggest one. I don't tend to use black for much of anything. I have some just in case, but I don't use it a lot. So because I want to try to get some green in here, let's start with this olive green. All right, and we're just gonna come out here. And so the other thing I kind of hate about painting, I won't lie, is that sometimes you cover up your stuff and you're like, oh, but I really liked that wave. And palm trees are pretty easy. Yeah, see, I'm not super liking the green. It's not gonna show up like I like. So that's okay. We can switch gears a little bit and we'll just have that one in the background. And then we're gonna come in. This is a little bit of raw umber. Alright, so palm trees are fairly easy. It's just a lot of this. Of course, there's, you know, all kinds of different types of palm trees. So I may want to come down to a slightly smaller brush. And I kind of try to vary my strokes a little bit too. Sometimes I'll go up, and sometimes I'll bring stuff in down. It just depends. So let's swap here. I'm going to go to the sepia color, and I believe that this is the Winsor Newton sepia. So to me, the sepia tends to read kind of cool. If you want to come back and fill in, you can. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just kind of depends. Sometimes I'll do the middle part with one brush and then come in with a smaller brush and do it that way. So it just depends. And because I didn't quite like that green one, all of this stuff's going to end up covering it. I'm going to wet my brush down just a little bit. It's getting kind of dry. Like that. And then, what do I want? Let's come in here with a little Van Dyke brown. I want a little guy here. And you know what? I'm actually gonna swap to a different brush. And remember, stuff in nature is rarely perfect. So if you've got something that is a little long or maybe you think looks a little funny, well, sometimes nature looks a little funny and that's okay. So let's see. I don't want all of these to be at the same angle, so we're gonna bring that one in like that. And I don't worry about these bleeding. Because they're just gonna kind of bleed into each other, and I don't mind that. So I want a little more definition. Didn't quite have enough paint. All right. There we go. So far I think I like this. The Van Dyke and the sepia on this. And then let's do one more here. And we're just filling in some layers. Like so. I don't know if I can make this work or not. Let's see. I think this is the, is it like topside green? It's one of the Primatech colors. It's actually one of my favorites. Got a little thick there. It's okay. And so sometimes you have paint, but you don't have enough water. I'm bad about that. So a little more paint. A little more water in here. I definitely want, I think I can do this. I want one this way, and I think I can get this one in the olive, and it will show up. So like that. Yeah. So when I did this before and I just did them all neutral tint, I don't know, I ended up not liking it as much as I thought I would. I just felt like it was maybe a little flat. So I like being able to mix up some of the colors here. So there's that. And I'm going to turn this. I'm bad about sticking my hand in stuff. So I'm just going to come up. And you can always, too, come behind it if you want some more definition. You can come behind it with like a darker version of the color and add some. Like these fronds are kind of coming together, so I could come in and clean it up if I wanted. All right, and then let's see. I don't like that yet, but I'm going to slide to this side and see what I can come up with. So, I'm actually gonna do that. And if you wanted to use different colors on the fronds just to give it some depth, you could do that. There's no reason you can't. Right. So sometimes it's hard to match angles. Something a little darker. So there's that one. And let's see. I'm going to come in on this one. Sometimes you get better stuff when you move your whole hand. I think sometimes we get caught up in just moving like our wrist or our brush. But it can be, like I said, you can get sometimes better stuff or better I don't know what you get better motion when you use your whole move your whole hand, your whole arm, that kind of thing. Okay. Alright, let's see what else. Let's come in here with some raw umber. And go like that. There we go. And I may, let's do a few in Payne's Gray. It's that hint of blue I feel like would actually be nice for here. I think one of the big things I had to learn to let go of when I paint is that A, it's not going to be perfect, and B, a lot of times just the suggestion of what you're painting is enough. It doesn't have to be photorealistic, and I kind of struggled with that. I think I still struggle with that actually. But the idea that it has to look real. Don't get me wrong, I do like some things to look fairly real, but it doesn't, like I said, have to be photorealistic. All right, there's that. Let's see. Really just not liking that side, I'm not gonna lie. All right, I'm gonna come back in with, this is the Van Dyke Brown. So I don't think these trees are the same tree. So I'm gonna make sure I have lots of fronds in different directions. And maybe even slightly different. Some of them are a little more feathery. Yeah, I like this side better, I think, just because I feathered them a little better. Let's see. I am gonna try some Hooker's Green. How do I want to come in with this one? There's that. All right, a little more sepia here. And let's see, how do I want this one to go? Like that. Okay. I'm going to come over here with some Payne's Gray. Because I think what I mostly don't like over here is actually that I had used a bigger brush. And they feel a little clunky to me. So we're going to come in and do some of this. See if that helps us a little bit. Let's do a little more Payne's Gray. All right. Go. That's a little better. I'm going to come in a little low here with, let's do some Van Dyke Brown. Do this. Try not to get my hand in the way of the camera, but well, that's how I have to paint, so sorry. Okay, that's a little better. I do want to come in a little low though. I just want a little baby right there. All right. I think. Do I want another one right here? I think so. I'm going to come in again with the Payne's Gray. So Payne's Gray is absolutely one of my favorite colors. I think every palette should have a Payne's Gray, and I don't care about mixing it, I'll be honest. And I'm going to do a video one day on this, on why I don't want to have to mix all my colors, and I'd rather just buy them. But not today. Alright. So we're going to come in like that. I'm a little happier with that. Alright. So I am actually just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to add any more details. This could be out your balcony window when you're on vacation, and be something that you get to look at while you're there, which would be fabulous, let's just be honest. So, but I hope you enjoyed this paint along. And like I said, I don't know, I'm not a teacher, I'm not trying to do tutorials here, so hopefully you enjoyed watching it and maybe you picked up a couple things, and if you did, awesome. But hopefully you at least enjoyed watching it, and yeah, so get out there and just paint.